The movie opens in 1947, in Alaska. We see a man struggling through a brutal snowstorm. He finally reaches a cabin and tries to grab something from behind a grate. Suddenly, he hears a terrifying growl. The scene then cuts to an oil exploration team playing cards, while a woman watches them. She invites one of them to dance, but just then, they hear the same eerie growl. Everyone becomes alert and uneasy. The woman walks toward the window, but her companions assure her it's probably just a bear. Calming down a bit, she heads off to sleep. Later that night, she hears loud banging noises and goes to check. She finds her partner on the roof, fixing something. He asks if he scared her, but she says no and starts helping him. However, as she watches him work, something suddenly drags him upward and brutally kills him. At the same time, a news broadcast reports that billionaire Mariel Sunday and his team have gone missing in Alaska. Mariel Jr., in an interview, says that his father and the team never returned and have officially been declared missing. He promises to find them and reveals that he has assembled an elite rescue team. The team includes Leander Cortez, the supervisor, Dr. Margaret Lamp, an animal specialist whose twin sister is also missing, Booker Marchmont, a radio communications expert, and Dan, a demolition specialist. Meanwhile, Ellie Bannister, daughter of Hollis, is giving a lecture on maps. After her presentation, she meets Belle Parker, who says she's there on behalf of Mariel Jr. Ellie already guesses it's about her father's disappearance. Belle explains that Hollis and the others vanished suddenly. But Ellie doesn't believe it, saying that as far as she's concerned, her father disappeared 15 years ago and is probably wherever he always wanted to be. Belle then reveals that the team never even boarded the boat, and their last communication was a distress call. This worries Ellie, and she asks what she can do. Belle tells her that although she's skilled with maps, she has no field experience. But that's exactly why Mariel Jr. wants her to lead the team and help with the rescue mission. Ellie shows fear about the danger, but Belle says she trusts her and believes they have a better chance of succeeding together. As Belle is about to leave, Ellie gives her a compass that her father gave her and says she'll need it. After Belle leaves, Ellie looks at an old newspaper about her mother's disappearance and realizes she has to do something. A little later, she's seen with the team, and Mariel Jr. introduces her as the team's navigator. Ellie goes over to Belle, who returns her compass, and that's how she officially becomes part of the mission. Later, they arrive in Alaska, and Ellie tries to confirm their location from the boat, but she can't hear properly because of the noise. Booker explains that the storm has already reached them, and they'll be stuck there for a few days. Meanwhile, the rest of the team waits, and Dan struggles to set up the tents. Margaret tells him to give up and explains that the ground is permafrost, which will stay frozen solid until summer. When Ellie and Belle return, Mariel Jr. gathers everyone and asks what they found. Ellie says she tried to contact the ship, but the signal was cut off because of the storm. This frustrates Mariel Jr., and he demands a solution. Ellie says that given the situation, the only option is to wait. Dan gets stressed and asks where they're supposed to set up camp, pointing out that they've been following Ellie for 3 days with no success. Belle tries to calm him down, saying the storm is the reason, but Dan refuses to accept it. He says they'll all die like the others because no one even knows where they are. Mariel Jr. tells him to be quiet, but Dan continues, saying his father is probably already dead, and even if they find him, Ellie won't be able to save him. At that moment, Booker steps in and says they're on their own now because the ship can't stay anchored much longer. Dan complains about being stuck in the freezing conditions since he can't break the ground. Ellie suggests building an improvised shelter, but Mariel Jr. stops her and tells Dan to use explosives instead. Dan prepares everything, and once everyone moves away, he sets off the blast, creating a large hole in the ground. Later, while the team is talking, Mariel Jr. approaches Ellie and apologizes for his earlier behavior. Ellie says she didn't lose her way because of the storm and shows him her compass, which seems to be malfunctioning. Mariel Jr. reassures her that everything will be fine. At the same time, Dan asks Margaret why an animal specialist is part of a rescue team. She reveals that her sister was the cook of the missing group, and she came to save her. This shocks everyone. Later, Ellie explains the issue with the compass, and Margaret says they are close to the magnetic north, which can cause all kinds of anomalies, even the stories about monsters. When Belle questions that, Ellie responds that those stories exist to keep people away from places where they don't belong. Just then, Dan hears a strange noise and asks if anyone else heard it. But Lunder tells him to stop joking around. Dan insists he's not kidding and tells everyone to pay attention. Soon, they all confirm the sound, and Lunder guesses it might just be a polar bear or something. Marielle doesn't like the talk about monsters and tells everyone to stay quiet, which makes a few people chuckle nervously. Later that night, while everyone is lying down, Dan tells Ellie he needs to step outside for a bit. Ellie tries to give him a rope so he won't lose his way, but he refuses. After he leaves, Booker comes over to talk to Ellie and asks if she's traveled a lot. She says yes, but now she avoids going out. She explains that she could have become a famous explorer like her parents, but her life changed after a polio outbreak when she was 15, something she barely survived. Then Booker asks about her mother, and she pauses, lost in thought. Suddenly, the radio fills with static, cutting their conversation short, and Ellie decides to get some rest. Meanwhile, after finishing his business, Dan starts hearing loud banging noises coming from the forest. He lights a lighter and tries to find the source, but the sounds grow louder until something terrifying hits him and he starts screaming. Ellie hears it and realizes she might be the only one who did. She decides to go look for him, but first ties a rope to a tree so she won't lose her way. She doesn't go far before hearing the banging again, but suddenly, the rope snaps, making her even more scared. The noises get louder, and then she sees someone approaching her with a lighter. Ellie calms down when she recognizes Dan, slowly walking toward her with his head down. But his face is covered in blood. He says he saw Margaret's twin sister, and that she's incredibly beautiful. Then Dan turns around, and Ellie sees he's been attacked. Terrified, she watches as he walks toward the darkness, humming a creepy song. Suddenly, Ellie hears a deep, horrifying growl. She backs away and hides behind a tree as a monstrous creature approaches, snarling. Frozen in fear, she can't move. Just then, she hears her friends calling out to her. The voices drive the creature away and Ellie can finally breathe again. But she's too scared to even call for help. Somehow, she makes it back to camp, but everyone can tell she's shaken. Mariel Jr. asks about Dan, and Leander reveals that he found his remains nearby, which terrifies everyone. Margaret asks who killed him, and Leander says it was something big enough to tear a man in half. She then asks Ellie if she saw the body, but in shock, Ellie can't respond. Margaret says she's going to see the remains, but Mariel Jr. stops her, insisting that Dan might not be dead, that maybe he just got lost or wandered off drunk. This angers Booker, who tells that Marielle is just trying to save money and that the dead deserve respect. Mariel Jr. apologizes but says that in the end he'll make the decisions. Leander disagrees and says they're going to bring back Dan's body, or whatever is left of it. Frustrated, Mariel Jr. asks if he's lost his mind and whether Dan matters more than his father. He argues that once they rescue his father, they can come back and bury Dan. Everyone eventually agrees, and Margaret approaches Ellie to talk. But Ellie says she can't stay there and walks away. They continue moving forward, and while the others are talking, Belle hears that same strange banging sound again. She pauses, loses in thought, and ends up falling behind. Margaret discusses Dan's death with Kurt, saying she couldn't properly examine the body. Kurt replies that he hopes she won't get another chance. Elim shows Mariel Jr. the map, explaining that the outpost is a few kilometers ahead, but he decides to change course and insists on going in another direction. Just then, Kurt notices that Belle is missing and alerts everyone. They start calling out for her. He says he'll track her and tells the others to keep moving forward. But Ellie is reminded of what happened to Dan. Kurt insists he knows what he's doing, and Margaret decides to go with him, thinking Belle might be injured. The two head out to search for her. Meanwhile, the rest of the group follows the path chosen by Mariel Jr. After walking for a while, he begins to realize that the route they're on might be wrong. Frustrated, he immediately starts blaming Ellie. But staying calm, Ellie reminds him that she had already warned him. Then she moves ahead, choosing a different route. During the search, Margaret spots a massive and strange footprint in the snow, something far too large to belong to any normal animal. The size alone is unsettling, and she wants to examine it more closely. But suddenly, Belle's terrifying, pain-filled screams echo through the area. Everyone panics and immediately runs toward the sound. Court takes the lead, moving ahead of the group as he tracks the source of the noise. Just then, he senses something rushing toward him at high speed. He instantly prepares to defend himself, but within seconds he realizes it's Margaret before they can react. Even louder screams pierce the air again, and both of them sprint toward the direction. When they arrive, they witness a horrifying scene, a massive, terrifying creature dragging Belle away and brutally killing her. Once the beast disappears, Courts rushes to Belle's side, desperately trying to save her, but he quickly realizes it's too late. Holding her in his arms, he breaks down in grief while Margaret stands frozen in shock and fear. Meanwhile, the rest of the team reaches the outpost, excited to finally get inside, but as soon as they enter, they find the entire place completely destroyed and abandoned. This makes Mariel Jr. even more anxious, and he begins to worry about his father. At that moment, Ellie notices that Margaret is extremely weak from the cold and helps her. Margaret explains that she barely made it there while Courts went off to hunt the creature. She also shows them a large fang. A little later, Courts returns and confirms the worst. Belle is dead, and the creature is a dangerous beast that walks on two legs. Hearing this, Mariel Jr. lashes out in anger and blames him, but Booker steps in to stop the argument. Courts, filled with rage, vows to kill the beast and avenge Belle before storming off. Then Margaret mentions Gigantopithecus, a prehistoric species believed to be extinct. Ellie suggests that maybe one of its descendants is still alive and insists that everyone should stick together. However, Mariel Jr. disagrees, arguing that they should head back immediately and seek help from the government. Suddenly, a loud, thunderous growl echoes nearby, confirming that the creature is closer than ever. Courts warns everyone to stay away from the windows and prepare for an attack. As the beast slowly approaches, the tension in the air becomes almost unbearable. Meanwhile, Mariel Jr. tries to make contact over the radio, but suddenly the creature attacks him. Ellie rushes to stop his bleeding, but things quickly get worse and the creature drags Coates away. After that, Booker calms Ellie down and tries to steady her. Later, Ellie says the creature will come back. They barricade the broken window and Margaret reveals that everyone there has been killed, including her sister. However, Hollis might not have been with the team at the time, which gives Ellie a bit of hope. Booker tries to fix the radio, but the antenna is broken. He notices Ellie looking devastated. Ellie says she was only invited because of her father's fame, and because of that, everyone ended up dying. Booker tells her it's not her fault, and that without her, they would have been lost long ago. Ellie then opens up about her past, explaining that she once lost her mother too. They were on Mount McKinley when a storm hit. Her leg got stuck, and her mother disappeared into the fog. Her father couldn't find her and was never able to face Ellie after that. Since then, Ellie has been using maps to explore the world. Ellie suddenly remembers that a distress call came from the outpost. Booker says there's a radio tower there, and Ellie suggests they use it to send a message to the ship. The two head outside. Before climbing the tower, Booker hands Ellie a gun and teaches her how to shoot. He ties himself to a rope and tells her to run if she sees the creature. He climbs up and starts fixing the tower. After a while, Ellie says the radio is working again. But then Booker senses something is wrong and yells that the creature is coming. Ellie quickly removes her headphones. At that moment, Booker slips and ends up hanging from the rope. Ellie sees blood dripping and starts climbing to help him, but a loud growl echoes through the forest. Terrified, she freezes and then runs away. A little later, Booker regains consciousness, frees himself from the rope, and falls to the ground. Ellie watches everything from a distance as the forest falls silent once again. Then, the dangerous and mysterious creature slowly approaches him. With its massive, powerful claws, it slams him to the ground, leaving him no chance to fight back, and within seconds, it brutally kills him. Ellie witnesses the whole thing and is completely shaken. Crying, she runs away without looking back, sprinting non-stop until she finally spots the old cabin. She rushes inside and locks the door. Once inside, she sees a man locked in a cage. At first, she thinks it's her father Hollis and runs to help him. But as she gets closer, she realizes it's Mariel Sunday, who angrily and anxiously asks her where he is. Ellie understands that he's not thinking clearly due to the cold and his condition, so she frees him from the cage. Supporting him, she slowly takes him back to the outpost. There, Mariel Jr. is relieved to see his father alive and immediately starts taking care of him. Meanwhile, everything starts to feel off to Ellie. She searches one of the rooms and finds a jar of morphine along with some disturbing drawings. The drawings show a human gradually transforming into a creature. Shocked, Ellie begins to suspect Sunday, especially since he himself was found chained up inside a cage. Just then, Mariel Jr. walks over and says he'll be leaving in the morning with his father, and he wants Ellie to come with them. But Ellie refuses, saying this mission has a deep connection to that cage, and her father wouldn't have come here just for money. Mariel Jr. brushes it off as nonsense. Ellie fires back, saying no one brings traps like this without a reason. This all feels planned. At that moment, Sunday steps forward holding a weapon and declares he's not leaving without Hollis, because Hollis was the one who locked him in the cage. He reveals that the real mission wasn't O'Neill, it was the hunt. They were searching for a very old and dangerous creature. The earlier teams never came back, and their last message mentioned a beast capable of killing humans with ease. Sunday admits he became obsessed with this creature, which is why he tracked down Hollis, since Ellie's father knew the legend. When they arrived, all the hunters were killed, only he and Hollis survived. Then they found the creature's baby. Hollis saw humanity in it and decided to save it, locking it inside the cage. Hearing this, Margaret points out that if there's a baby, the mother must be out there too. Sunday says they never saw her. Mariel Jr. panics, saying they can't handle something like that. But Sunday suddenly knocks Ellie unconscious and decides to use her as bait. He ties her up inside the cage and waits for the creature. After a while, the creature shows up. Margaret, drawn toward it, steps closer, but it instantly kills her. Ellie regains consciousness and struggles to break free. She manages to loosen the ropes but can't escape the cage. The creature approaches and knocks the cage over. Just then, it's temporarily stopped with a drug. Sunday tells his son to tie it up while he goes to get more sedative. Terrified, Mariel Jr. slowly moves forward, calling out to Ellie, but he can't see her. Suddenly, Ellie attacks from behind, wrapping a rope around him and killing him. She crawls across the ground, trying to escape. But Sunday returns and, despite her desperate pleas, injects her with a sedative. Right then, a loud and terrifying scream echoes, and Hollis arrives. Sunday tries to strike a deal with him, but the moment he gets distracted, Ellie grabs a nearby tool and attacks, knocking him down. She then smashes his head with a brutal blow. Exhausted, she collapses to the ground. As Sunday lies dying, he asks Hollis if any of this was worth it. Hollis says nothing, he just stands there in silence. After some time, Ellie regains consciousness and sees her father standing in front of her. He scolds her, asking why she came here. But Ellie tells him she came to take him back home. She questions him about why he abandoned her when she was a child. Hollis then explains that the creature can mimic human voices, and when he saw a glimpse of his daughter in it, he decided to save it. He says he's been living there for years, thinking about her every single day. Ellie watches him feeding the creature's baby, unable to understand what's right and what's wrong. Fear, pain, anger, and confusion all clash inside her at once. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Mariel Jr. is not dead. As soon as he regains consciousness, he grabs his weapon and looks around, only to realize that his father has been killed. Seeing this, he struggles to control himself, caught between fear and rage. At the same time, Hollis and Ellie hear a terrifying growl. Hollis immediately realizes that the creature's mother has arrived, searching for her baby. Without wasting a second, he picks up the small cube containing the creature he saved. But Ellie stops him, saying she can't go with him because it's too dangerous and could cost them their lives. Hollis calmly but firmly replies that they won't go together. He'll face this danger alone. He explains his plan. He'll use the cube to lure the larger creature toward himself, giving Ellie a chance to escape. He tells her there's a canoe hidden nearby, which she can use to safely get away through the river. Ellie tries to stop him, but Hollis reassures her, saying she's always known how to take care of herself, and she'll manage this time too. Then he moves forward to carry out his plan. Holding the cube, he heads deeper into the jungle to draw the creature's attention. But it doesn't take long. The massive and deadly creature finds him. Within moments, it attacks and kills Hollis. On the other side, Ellie, standing at a distance, senses everything that's happening. But now, she has no choice. Forced to follow her father's words, she heads in the direction he mentioned. After a while, she finds the canoe. She looks at the compass in her hand, the one her father gave her. Tears well up in her eyes, but she composes herself. Taking a deep breath, she sits in the canoe and slowly begins her journey back home through the water. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.